Imagine spending a lifetime working hard, only to be met with demands instead of respect. Instead of peace, you're burdened with guilt, and instead of valuing your time, they expect you to keep sacrificing, as if everything you've done was never enough. They ask things of you that should never even cross your path: to give up your independence, to keep solving other people's problems, to carry responsibilities that aren't yours. They call it love, but deep down, you know it's just manipulation disguised as affection. If you don't set boundaries now, there will come a day when you look back and realize you never truly lived your own life. You lived the one others chose for you. Today, we're going to talk about the 7 things no one should ask of you in your 60s, 70s, or 80s. And the last one is the one that has hurt you the most without you even realizing it. I'm Celia, and this message isn't for those looking for comfort. It's for those who are ready to open their eyes and take back their dignity. Let's begin. Would you rather be alone or tied to a company that suffocates you? Many believe that the worst fate in old age is loneliness, but they're wrong. The real prison isn't being without someone. It's staying with someone who drains you, who limits you, who steals your peace under the excuse that it's better than being alone. And that's where the problem begins, when they ask you to give up your independence just so you won't be alone. They tell you that at your age, you shouldn't be living on your own, that you need someone, even if that company is more of an anchor than a support. But tell me something, do you truly need someone, or have they just convinced you that you can't be happy on your own? Think about the woman who, after becoming a widow, keeps hearing the same phrase over and over again. You can't be alone, you have to find someone to take care of you. As if her life no longer belonged to her. As if her only option was to jump from one relationship to another out of fear of being by herself. Or the man who, after decades of marriage, continues enduring a bitter coexistence simply because he was made to believe that after 70, there's no room to start over. People see him fading, they see him resigned, they see him stuck in a draining routine, but no one tells him the truth, that the price of that so-called company is his own freedom. Society pushes the idea that loneliness is the greatest enemy in old age. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself if being alone is really that bad? Because there's something far worse. Sharing your days with someone who makes you feel lonelier than you would if you were completely at peace with yourself. They tell you that you need a partner, that you can't distance yourself from certain family members, that you must hold on to lifelong friendships, even if they no longer add anything to your life, even if deep down, you feel trapped by the obligation to be around people who no longer fulfill you. Now tell me, what's truly sadder? Waking up in an empty house but feeling at peace, or waking up every day next to someone who ignores you, belittles you, and makes you feel invisible? Some cling to the wrong company because they were taught that independence is a curse. But the real curse is having to ask permission to make your own choices, to do what you love, to simply exist without carrying the weight of someone else. And the most dangerous part, if you buy into that lie, if you give in to the pressure that you must be with someone just to avoid being alone, you'll end up losing yourself. It's not too late to open your eyes. If someone asks you to give up your independence so you won't be alone, they're not doing you a favor. They're selling you a cage disguised as a home. And the only way to avoid it is to understand that true companionship begins with yourself. If you think the worst betrayal is being left alone, think again. There is no greater betrayal than giving everything to others and still being expected to give more. You spent decades caring, supporting, sacrificing your time, your energy, your money, and now that you should finally be living in peace, they look at you as if you still owe them something. We've reached the second key point of this video, when they ask you to keep sacrificing for those who never sacrificed for you. Since you were young, you were taught that giving everything for others was the definition of love. That being a good father, a good mother, a good sibling, or a good friend meant putting everyone else first, no matter the cost. And you did. You stayed up at night when your children needed you, worked extra hours so your family never went without, helped friends and acquaintances, even when it meant putting your own dreams on hold. But the real question is, who has done the same for you? Because if you look around and realize that you were always the one giving while others only took, then it wasn't love, it was abuse disguised as affection. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said that you can't control what others do, but you can control what you allow. And if you've allowed people to get used to taking from you without limits, they won't let go easily. Every time you say you can't, that you don't feel like it, that it's finally time to think about yourself, guilt lands on your shoulders like a weight, because you've been conditioned to believe that if you stop sacrificing, you're selfish, ungrateful, a bad parent, a bad sibling. But tell me something, if the love they have for you only exists as long as you keep giving without limits, was it ever really love? Look around. How many people reach old age exhausted, sick, drained, not from the weight of the years, but from the weight of other people's demands? They keep taking care of grandchildren as if they were their own children. They keep financially supporting grown adults who should be independent. They keep solving problems that aren't theirs to fix. And the worst part, if they ever try to stop, the response they get isn't gratitude, it's outrage. What do you mean you can't help me anymore? What do you mean you won't be there when I need you? What do you mean you want time for yourself? No matter how much you've given, it will never be enough for those who have grown used to taking without effort. But here's the truth that no one tells you. You don't have to keep doing it. The debt you think you owe to others doesn't exist. What you gave because you wanted to. But that doesn't mean you have to keep giving until there's nothing left of you. Sacrifice only makes sense when it's mutual, when there's reciprocity, when someone has been willing to do the same for you. But if the scale has always been tipped to one side, then it's not sacrifice, it's exploitation. And the only way to break free from it is to start saying no, even if it hurts, even if it upsets them, even if they're shocked. If they ask you to keep sacrificing when you no longer have to, your answer must be clear. No more. Not because you don't love them, but because you also deserve to be loved. Not because you don't care, but because, for the first time in your life, you need to care about yourself more. Saying no to further sacrifice is a big step. But if you don't protect what you've built, someone else will take it without asking. This brings us to the third key point of this video. When they expect you to keep working or providing financial support when you shouldn't have to anymore. Because there's a difference between helping out of your own free will and being made to feel obligated to remain the financial lifeline for those who never learned to stand on their own. And the worst part, many times they don't even ask outright. They disguise it as need, love, family tradition, respect for elders. But deep down, what they really want is for you to keep carrying a burden that no longer belongs to you. Look around. How many people reach old age believing they will finally be able to rest, only to realize their peace is seen as a luxury they can't afford? Retirees who still work because their children can't manage their own lives. Grandparents handing over their savings to cover someone else's whims. People who should be enjoying their remaining years, but are instead trapped in a cycle of financial sacrifice because someone depends on them. And the excuse is always the same. But you can afford it. It's just a loan. You have extra money, what does it matter? But tell me, if your money runs out and your health fails, who will take care of you when you have nothing left to give? Here's the key. Stop treating your financial stability as something negotiable. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being smart. The money you have now isn't extra. It's the foundation of your future peace of mind. Every dollar you lend without guarantees, every expense made just to please others, is time from your life that you're giving away with no return. Why do you think people who truly understand money guard their wealth so carefully? Because they know that stability isn't a gift. It's something you build, and it can collapse in an instant if you don't protect it. This is where strategy comes in. Learn to say no without explanations. Every time you justify why you can't help financially, you leave the door open for them to persuade you. You don't need long excuses, and you certainly don't need to apologize. A simple "I can't" is enough. And if they insist, repeat it, without guilt, without hesitation. The money you worked for is not an emergency fund for others. It's your right to live worry-free. Think about this. Imagine your money is like a water supply in the middle of a desert. You filled that tank with effort, sacrifices, and years of work. But now, every person who comes to you with an excuse is holding out a cup, expecting you to give them some. At first, it seems harmless, but before you know it, the tank is empty, and you're the only one left thirsty. While everyone else found another source, you are left with nothing. And this is the difference between those who reach old age with peace of mind and those who end up depending on others. The first group learned to turn off the tap in time. Before we move on to the next point, I want you to do something. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you've ever felt pressured to give more than you could, I want to hear your story. And if this message is resonating with you, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button, because what's coming next will open your eyes even more. The final lesson is the most important one, and it could completely change the way you live this stage of your life. If you keep sacrificing yourself and letting your hard work slip through your fingers, sooner or later, you'll realize something even worse. They haven't just taken your money, your time, and your energy. They've taken your respect. And there's nothing more exhausting than living with people who believe they can demand anything from you without consequences. This brings us to the fourth key point of this video, when they expect you to tolerate disrespect just because they're family. This is one of the most dangerous traps because most people don't even realize they're caught in it. From a young age, we were taught that family comes first, that we must forgive, endure, and accept that blood is sacred. We were conditioned to justify anything under the excuse of love. And that's how you end up tolerating hurtful words, unfair demands, and blatant disregard, because they told you that's just how it is. But tell me, if the disrespect comes from a son, a daughter, a sibling, or a grandchild, does it stop being disrespect? If someone yells at you, ignores you, or makes you feel invisible, does it really matter who they are? The problem is that disrespect doesn't appear overnight. It creeps in slowly, like water dripping onto a rock, until it wears it down completely. At first, it's a subtle comment. "You're old, you wouldn't understand." Then it becomes an impatient tone, a dismissive glance, the habit of interrupting you mid-sentence, the belittling of your thoughts and feelings. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. Because you've allowed so much, you've stayed silent for so long, and you've given in so often that now they think it's normal to treat you this way. The consequences of this mistake are devastating. When you allow disrespect, something inside you dims. You lose confidence in yourself. You second-guess your decisions. You start wondering if you even deserve to be treated differently. And here's the harshest truth. Respect is not begged for. It is enforced. If someone mistreats you and you continue to allow it, they won't stop. In fact, they'll push further to see how much you'll tolerate. Because people don't treat you based on what you deserve. They treat you based on what you have taught them they can get away with. Think about all the times you let a hurtful comment slide because you didn't want to cause problems. Or when you pretended it didn't bother you to be spoken to with contempt because that's just how they are. Or when you excused their rudeness, telling yourself they're probably just having a bad day. Every single time you did that, without realizing it, you gave them permission to keep doing it. And now that you want to reclaim your place, you find that no one takes you seriously. But here's the most important lesson. It's not too late to change that. It doesn't matter if you've been disrespected for years. The time to put a stop to it is now. You don't need to yell, argue, or give long explanations. You only need one sentence. "Don't speak to me that way." And if they insist, if they look at you with surprise, if they try to brush it off, repeat it. The first time you say it, they'll find it odd. The second time, they'll start to notice. The third time, they'll understand that you are no longer someone to be messed with. And when you make it clear that you'd rather be alone than be humiliated, you'll see how quickly the dynamic changes. Because at the end of the day, the family that truly matters isn't the one you share blood with, it's the one that respects you. If you allow people to disrespect you, soon they'll ask for something even worse. For you to stop being yourself just to please them. This brings us to the fifth key point of this video. When they expect you to stop doing what you love because it's not appropriate at your age. There's no request more insulting than that, because what they're really saying is that your identity, your passions, your habits, everything that makes you happy, no longer matters, as if simply reaching a certain age meant your right to enjoy life had expired. The problem is that many people give in to this idea without even realizing it. One day, someone makes a comment like, "You shouldn't wear that anymore, it doesn't suit you," and you change the way you dress. Another day, they say, "Don't be ridiculous, that music is outdated," and you turn down the volume on your favorite songs. Then they say, "At your age, you really shouldn't be doing that." And without thinking twice, you stop doing things that once made you feel alive. Little by little, they dim your light. You become a shadow of who you once were. Someone who walks quietly to avoid standing out, who stays silent to avoid seeming out of touch. And before you know it, you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. This is one of the most subtle yet cruel forms of manipulation, because they don't force it on you all at once. They plant it in your mind with phrases disguised as advice. "It's for your own good," they say. "I just don't want people to laugh at you," they insist. But the reality is different. They don't want you to be happy on your own terms, because it reminds them that they aren't free. It bothers them to see you enjoying life without asking for permission. It irritates them that you still have the energy to explore, to dress how you like, to laugh, to dance, to listen to music that brings back memories. And because they've locked themselves inside the cage of conformity, they want you to do the same. But here's the truth that few dare to say. In life, you have two choices: live by your own rules, or slowly fade away trying to meet other people's expectations. There's no in-between. If you give in to the pressure of fitting into their idea of what someone your age should be, you're betraying yourself. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to decide what brings you joy. The only way to take back control is to reclaim your space, your essence, and your right to enjoy life. This isn't about rebelling for the sake of it. It's about understanding that every time you say, "You're right, I shouldn't do this anymore," you're giving up a piece of yourself. So the next time someone tells you not to wear something, not to sing that song, not to do what makes you feel alive, do it even louder, even prouder. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove to yourself that you still own your story. Because if someone mocks the things that bring you joy, the problem isn't you. The problem is their small-mindedness. You didn't make it this far in life just to sit on the sidelines, worrying about what others think. You're here to live, on your own terms. So stop asking for permission, and start living. If you give in to the idea that your life no longer belongs to you, if you adjust to what others expect, if you become a shadow of who you once were, sooner or later, the next blow will come. They will use you as a pawn in conflicts that aren't even yours. This brings us to the sixth key point of this video, when they expect you to get involved in family disputes that have nothing to do with you. And this is a dirty game, because most people don't even realize they're being dragged into it until it's too late. Imagine this. One afternoon, you're at home, at peace, enjoying a quiet moment that you've fought so hard to have. The phone rings. It's your son, your sibling, your nephew. At first, the conversation seems normal, until you hear the dreaded words, "You have to talk to him." You need to make them understand. You can't just stay out of this. Suddenly, You've been turned into the middleman in a fight you didn't start, the referee in a conflict that isn't yours. And if you refuse, the guilt lands on your shoulders. How can you be so indifferent? They ask. You're the only one who can fix this. And there you are again, caught in the crossfire where there are no winners, only exhaustion, frustration, and resentment. This is one of the most damaging mistakes in old age, believing that you still have to be the pillar, holding the family together, when the truth is, you've already done your part. If two adults can't solve their own problems without dragging you into them, then the problem isn't you, it's them. But here's the trap. You were taught that family is everything, that it's your duty to maintain harmony, that you must be the bridge between those who hate each other, the balm for old grudges, the shield for the weak. And that's how you end up carrying burdens that aren't yours, getting tangled in resentments that don't belong to you, and stressing over tensions you don't even understand. Now imagine the other scenario. The years go by, and you keep inserting yourself into problems that aren't yours. You keep trying to mediate, keep putting your piece on the line for people who don't even appreciate your effort. Until one day, you realize something terrifying. When you need support, when you have a problem, no one will lift a finger for you, because the people who demand your involvement in their conflicts are rarely willing to do the same when the situation is reversed. They used you when it suited them, but when you're no longer useful to their game, they'll move on with their lives as if you were never there. So tell me, what's the point? Why waste your time and energy on issues that shouldn't even be keeping you up at night? If someone has a problem with their brother, their cousin, their mother, their partner, let them deal with it. You are not their therapist, their judge, or their emotional punching bag. You deserve the peace you've worked so hard to find, and if that peace means staying away from drama, then it's the best decision you can make. So the next time someone tries to drag you into a family feud, remember this: anyone who gets involved in a war that isn't theirs always ends up with wounds they never deserved. Don't fall into the trap. Let them tear each other apart if that's what they want, but don't let them drag your peace down with them. If you've come this far and realize that you don't have to keep sacrificing yourself, that you don't have to tolerate disrespect, that you don't have to live for others or get involved in battles that aren't yours, then you're finally starting to understand what it truly means to take back your life. But there's one more thing, something that lies at the root of everything we've talked about. If you don't grasp this, everything else will be in vain. This is the seventh and final point of this video, when they expect you to put their desires above your peace. Because this is the ultimate trap. If you fall into it, everything else crumbles. Since you were young, you were taught that your worth was measured by what you did for others, that being a good person meant giving up what you wanted to satisfy those around you. That saying no was selfish, and so the years passed, the decades slipped away, and little by little you let go of the things that made you happy. You stopped making decisions for yourself because there was always someone who needed something: your partner, your children, your friends, all with their demands, all expecting you to be the support, the foundation, the one who is always there. But tell me something, who has been there for you? How many times has someone dropped everything to make sure you were okay? Here's the truth that many refuse to accept. No one is coming to save you. If you keep waiting for things to change, for people to finally acknowledge your sacrifices, for them to stop expecting you to give up your peace for them, you'll be waiting until your very last day. Because the people who have learned to put themselves above you aren't going to stop just because you suddenly realized it's unfair. These are habits, power dynamics, that have been in place for years. And if you don't make the decision to break them, no one will do it for you. Imagine that today, you decide your peace is more important than anything else. That from this moment on, before making a decision, you ask yourself, does this bring me peace, or does it take it away? And if the answer is that it takes it away, you simply don't do it. Not because you're a bad person, not because you don't care, but because no one else is going to take care of you if you don't do it first. Think about it. What's the point of constantly prioritizing others if it only leaves you drained, frustrated, and empty? Life doesn't wait. Every single day that you put someone else's desires above your peace is a day lost, a day you will never get back. And when the time comes that you need help, when you are the one hoping that someone will care about you, you'll realize that most of the people you sacrifice so much for are either gone or simply don't care what happens to you. And then what will you have left? Nothing but the regret of not having made this decision sooner. This is the moment to put yourself first. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things finally settle down. Now. Because if you keep waiting for the world to understand that you deserve peace, respect, and freedom, you'll be handing your life over to people who never had any intention of giving you anything in return. The choice is yours. Either you keep living according to what others want, or, for the first time in your life, you dare to live for yourself. If you've made it this far, it's because deep down, you know something has to change. Not everyone dares to listen to uncomfortable truths until the very end. Not everyone is willing to look in the mirror and admit they've spent too much time living for others. But here you are, standing before a choice. Keep going as you have, allowing people to demand, manipulate, and drain you, or do something that very few have the courage to do. Choose yourself. This isn't a message of comfort, because the truth isn't meant to be sugar-coated. No one is going to give you permission to change. No one is going to stop asking for things. No one is going to tell you it's time to live in peace. If you keep waiting for approval, you'll stay trapped in the same cycle until your last day. The only person who can break this pattern is you. And if you're still hesitating, if you still feel that pressure of, I can't do this to them, then remember this. How many times have they done things to you without ever asking how you felt? Enough is enough. I want you to leave a comment with the phrase, "My life, my rules," because that is the real message of this video. Also, tell me where you're watching from. I want to see just how far these words are reaching. And if this content resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe now and join this community of people who have decided to wake up, to reclaim their dignity, their independence, and their peace. Share this video because someone out there might need to hear this today. The conversation doesn't end here. On the screen, I'm leaving you with 2 videos that will open your eyes even more. Pick one and keep moving forward, because this is just the beginning of the life you truly deserve.